fantastic, this series.
Should be. We're going to get into pick and ban for the next game of this series, the final game of the first week of the European Summer Challenger Series split. War now on the blue side. What is it good for? Well, it's good for first picking that Zac if it gets through. Giants going to be on the red side, and Lee Sin is the first ban.
Zac first ban for Giants, absolutely, come on.
I mean, yeah, if they don't ban it here, it would be kind of surprising. I mean, honestly, though, just going into kind of very, very small micro points about pick and ban, you could actually just save it to the last ban on this side and see if Wind and Rain actually decide to ban it, and then you get a free ban.
I just don't see why you ban it yourself. There's no reason to
never,
ban it.
exactly, right?
You never ban it on blue side, right? Because you want to first pick it if that's the case.
I meant red side, but yeah.
Yeah, no, but you never ban it if you're trying to bait out a ban from Wind and Rain, because they would never ban it on their side.
Yeah.
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 Anyway, Zac does get banned.
Good point, yeah.
Regardless of what we've been saying, Zac gets banned first here by Giants. Yeah. No surprise there.
Yeah, Thresh being locked away as well, so not going to get their hands on that. And again, Thresh has been such a massive priority on a lot of these teams. I'm interested to see when it actually does get through and someone does actually play it, because it's just been cropping up everywhere now, no matter what the league, like NALCS, EU LCS, etc. It's just been such a massive priority and such a playmaker potential as well on that champion.
I think people have realized, again, especially against mage type supports, Thresh is always going to be good because you can find those engages and put pressure onto them. Mage type supports classically have very low health values, so if you can get those engages with the hook, it's almost certain that you're going to get some sort of value out of it, and that's why I kind of think Thresh has been sneaking his way back in. Plus the importance of picks. You know, people kind of underestimate at every level of the game the importance of making a pick, especially in the late game, and I think Thresh epitomizes a pick composition.
That it does. Galio is the first pick for Wind and Rain. Giants probably look towards the Elise here, although that did get all the way through picks and bans last time, wasn't picked by either team.
This is the only region, I think, that doesn't prioritize Elise as much as LCK. LCK essentially almost have 100% priority on Elise.
LCS does have like a massive priority on Elise here at EU LCS.
It's definitely very, very high. In EU LCS, I think Elise is in 87% of games in pick or ban, so it's got a very high
I love the way
priority.
you say, I think this might be like the fact when you're just looking at the stats in your notebook in front of you. It's like, guys, I think that Galio may have been picked up here by Wind and Rain.
I think potentially Elise might be 100% presence in LCK on 7-11. I'm not sure does it say that there?
I think it's 1 and 2 zeros, yeah, just about. Well, Elise is going to get picked up here for Giants as well as that Caitlyn. So they're going to get their round number 2 on
You've got more cranky throughout the days gone on.
It's so warm.
It's warm. It's very
really warm here.
You started the day off like bright-faced.
I'm still bright.
Challenger series, bright-faced medic,
Challenger series.
and now you're just getting crankier and crankier.
Well, okay, Wind and Rain now have their second rotation of picks. Let's talk about some League of Legends, guys. Twitch is the hover for them. Could team that up with a good support here if they want to. Otherwise, they run the risk of having supports banned out against them in that second ban phase.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we haven't seen too much Lulu on 7.11, but she is there. She can work with the Twitch composition quite well. I like her with the Galio too.
Screw that, Kha'Zix, guys. Let's go.
Throw that out the window. Don't know how Kha'Zix.
All right, Dang hits his Kha'Zix once again, and like we mentioned actually during the game, what kind of impact did he have in it? And the kind of crux of the question was none.
Yeah, I don't know, especially if you're trying to run a Twitch-based composition. I don't know what a Kha'Zix actually offers or brings to the table. I think Kha'Zix is good at finding early jungle duels. Maybe against this Elise he could do that, but I still think he potentially loses those.
At least with Cocoon, yeah.
Yeah, especially with the Cocoon, he's going to lose those out.
And now we expect to see Giants ban out supports or even mid laners if they really want to.
I think
Wind and Rain will go to top lane.
You could ban, yeah, okay, you can ban Cassidy. I think, yeah, again, banning a sort of a defensive support or banning something like an Orianna if Jizuki doesn't want to play it, although I imagine Jizuki might actually want to play the Orianna, so that might not be the case.
There's a lot of setup as well for these lanes now, and we talk about the amount of CC junglers have in order to actually impact lanes early on. Kha'Zix, none. He's got a slow with his Void Spikes, then you've got Elise. Flash Cocoon, Cocoon Flash, like, there's so much setup.
Cocoon Flash doesn't work as well as Flash Cocoon, just so that you know, it doesn't tend to go
You can start the animation and then Flash.
Yeah, you can.
So, there you go. So there's going to be a lot of setup here for Giants in the early game, especially taking that Braum away. I'm kind of curious to see why Wind and Rain didn't actually want to pick that one up, because it was such a prolific in the first game that they just decided, you know what, we'll take this Kha'Zix away and just make sure we can get a semi-counter pick in the top side.
I don't really like Kha'Zix into Braum either. I just think Braum is very good at shutting down Kha'Zix as he tries to get into the back line. You just land at least one basic attack in and suddenly he becomes a sitting duck for the Caitlyn. So there we go. Jizuki locks in that Orianna. It's something that he has been so good on throughout his career in professional League of Legends.
I don't think last game he really got any kills though, so...
Wasn't 7-0 or 8 or anything. I mean, just bearing in mind, Galio obviously can flex towards the mid is kind of what I was trying to touch on there, and the fact that they can actually counter-pick the mid lane. Sorry, that they can more or less counterpick the mid lane now if they needed to, or they could just send the Galio there and then pick up the top laner.
You could pick Shen, right, and have an absolute ultimate protect the Twitch composition. But then again,
right?
we've seen that before. It lacks a lot of damage from other sources.
You've got no AP then.
Yeah.
Like you've got Kha'Zix, who you can say, oh yeah, he's a damaging jungler, but if he doesn't get ahead, he really struggles late game. You need AP here.
Full AP Galio.
Syndra.
I like that.
Syndra or Victor?
I like it a lot.
Yeah.
So
You know a lot about the Victor Orianna matchup. I'm going to let you... Let's wait until we get into picks and bans before you talk about that.
We got 3 minutes after picks and bans. We can let Jaws just roll on about the Victor Orianna
Oh, that's
matchup.
true, yeah.
Oh, that's true.
I was hoping to be off the desk.
Well, this is interesting because this is kind of an element of Protect the Twitch, but you have such high impact damage dealers in the form of Twitch and Victor here. I think this is a lot more of a rounded Twitch composition. I like to see this. I think, you know, if you were to pick Shen and send Galio mid, suddenly you are just lacking damage on pretty much all fronts apart from Twitch. So,
well, they've covered up their holes in their previous composition with this Victor pickup now as well. There's a lot of actual wave clear now, so they can actually just stop Caitlyn walking up to those turrets with the Orianna for free, just poking down those turrets and then walking away completely unscathed.
I much prefer this draft from War. You've got wave clear in there to prevent that early pressure that Jizuki can put out with the Orianna. You know, if you ever get stuck into a turret situation where Julius is looking for a setup with the Elise, you can just clear those waves with the Victor E. Pretty much uncontested as well. You don't really have to commit too hard to get a wave clear with Victor. He's kind of known as the epitome of wave clearing mid laners, you know, especially when he upgrades that E with the Hex Core. So I think this is a lot more well-rounded from Wind and Rain. I don't know whether they will actually go into a 1-3-1. They've got a more team fight heavy composition here. They do want to seek skirmishes. They do want to seek 5v5s. So I think this is more of a team fight composition from War, and they need that versus what
Giant?
Yeah, this is the he, isn't it? Versus what Giants brought to the table last time. Giants showed their sort of prolific ability to team fight as a 5v5, especially with Jizuki on this Orianna. You need to have something to combat that as War, and I like this now. Even though they've got the double teleport, it gives them the option to find team fights and actually turn them in their favor as well.
I mean, you give Jizuki an inch and he takes an absolute mile. I mean, we saw it last game, the control over the Cassid, which is exactly what you need to do into a Cassidin. Just shove him out time and time again. As soon as the Orianna gets blue buff, you mentioned it, it's done.
Yeah.
You just shove the Cassidin out, he sits under turret, he can't wave clear. It's it can be hard for him if his W's down to actually CS underneath the turret as well. The Orianna can roam. With this Victor pickup now, more of a vulnerable mid laner. Not too much mobility after he gets, just before he actually gets Mark 2 on the Hex Core and upgrading the Q to get the extra speed boost. So Elise is actually going to be kind of, you know, thinking, I could probably get in the mid lane a couple of times in the early game and just at least get Jizuki ahead, wait for him to, you know, get 1 kill, 2 kills, and then he's just off on the sprint and he will take that. I think he'll actually just take over the game if he wins mid again. Yeah, and it's really going to come down to that interaction, I think.
I would like to see Dan put pressure onto Orianna in the mid lane, because if you can burn Orianna's flash early on, especially if you can try and burn both of those summoners. I remember when I was about 2 years ago, Vedios was talking to me about Orianna, and he said if Orianna burns flash, she's one of the most easily targeted mid laners in the game because of how immobile she can be. So especially with that gravity field from Victor, you just shove that down, Orianna potentially gets locked up in it, and then you have Dan come in with the burst potential from the Victor as well. They could look to abuse Jizuki on this Orianna should they put a bit of pressure down there early.
I mean, she's taking Ghost as well, so that's something else to kind of keep in mind. It can be, yeah, it can be a little bit harder. Ghost has a little bit of a wind up now, rather than just instantly going to the full speed. So that's something else to kind of keep in mind. If you pop that when they're coming into the lane, you're not at that like galloping speed to kind of get away ASAP. So yes, they can jump on them, and Dan can obviously leap forward, because Orianna, yeah, she isn't that mobile, has to wait for that dissonance to be able to get the speed up and get out of there. But Victor, yeah, has got that gravity field, and if he does get stuck up in it, she's good as dead, basically. So yeah, it's going to revolve around the mid lane heavily, and I can imagine Elise is going to focus it, because if we quickly flip away from mid and go towards the top side, we've got a Galio into a Renekton.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
I think we just all assumed you had a point there.
Galio into Renekton. Now someone take over. I think it's a laning phase that, in general, Galio is going to struggle against the Renekton early on. He doesn't have anything that naturally contends well with an AD bruiser in the top lane. A bit like Gangplank was picked into the Galio for that particular reason, look to punish him in the laning phase. You know, Renekton is so good at winning trades in the early game just because of the amount of sustain built into his kit, the fact that he's got a stun built in there as well. And I believe you can now cancel your W animation because they reverted all 7.10 and 7.9 changes on 7.11. So suddenly Renekton has become that much more viable once more.
I think he's always been like viable, and
Yeah.
he's been played a lot since 7.10 or so. Some of the item changes really helped him out.
Yeah.
Let's just take a quick step back and talk about these compositions and these teams again. You guys just looking at it on the face of it, who do you expect to take the win in this game?
I mean, just judging on the play from last game, you got to say Giants, if they play the macro game like they played last time, win and reign, they really need to kind of step up. They've got that wave clear now, but it's how well they actually utilize it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if you can keep the same level of momentum that Giants had in the last game, you can stop Twitch and Victor getting to the late game. Fully on board with Giants winning here. But it's a lot harder to sort of initiate and control these team fight situations and tower dive situations when you've got an Elise as opposed to a Zac. The long range engage is no longer there for Julius. He can't exploit poor vision in the river, for instance. He has to be a little bit more committed to these ganks. I think by getting rid of the Zac, you actually are going to give Wind and Rain a bit more of an option now, a little bit more breathing space. And if they can buy enough time, they might actually get to the late game. Although I'm on board with Jaws, I think this is going to Giants.
Eventually gets to the prediction at the end. Let's get into the Summoner's Rift. It's game 2 between Giants and War.
Here we go. Can War make the comeback, though? I think that's the question on everybody's lips right now. And I want to see Darkside on this Twitch, because looking back at CSQ Scoundrel, we go, okay, Darkside, what did he play? He played Lucian, and a little bit more Lucian. And just the lane dominance he actually puts out is just absolutely insane. But coming up once again against the bot lane of Giants, who picked up Caitlyn Braum so early on in the draft, he's going to have a little bit of a tough time on the Switch.
Absolutely, this will be a tough laning phase for him. They are going to get shoved in, as you imagine. But as we go throughout the game, Tahm Kench's viability in these teamfight situations is only going to increase, especially if Ruin tries to get to the backline, especially if Julius is looking to make a catch. Any kind of catch potential onto Darkside can be negated. Braum's so good into Tahm Kench, though, because, you know, if he does devour Twitch, suddenly the focus can become Quickseth on this Tahm Kench, and suddenly you can lock 2 for 1, essentially, in that situation.
It's always the kind of downfall. If we look at the items once more, Jizuki picking up the Assassin Mastery once again. Coming through without the biscuits. Ruin getting that recall animation off on the Marin skin. But yeah, here we go. There's actually going to be a double leash here for Gilius, so he's going to have a little bit of an easier time on the Elise after taking this Raptor camp. I want to see where he prioritizes, because like I said, I think it will be this mid lane. Kakan does have the heal, though. Not something you usually see on the Victor. You'd normally see the teleport or the Ghost. So really prioritizing that sustainability. Quickseth, by the way, taking a whole lot of damage.
Yeah, it's very difficult to play into this lane as a Tahm Kench. You can't be aggressive. You have to be as defensive as possible. Jack Troll and Minute doing such a good job, again, of trying to assert their dominance here. So again, this Orianna-Victor matchup, I know you really wanted to talk about it. You have such experience in this matchup, Jaws.
Well, I kind of, when it flicked back over, it was Deathfire Touch actually on the Victor rather than the Thunderlord. So he's really prioritizing that late game kind of dot damage rather than just the early on trades, which you kind of want against Orianna. You need to be able to trade with her, otherwise she's just going to kind of take over the lane completely. But it takes 1,250 gold exactly for Victor to actually come online. A little bit more if you want a couple of potions as well. He needs to get that first mark on the Hex Core in order to upgrade the Death Ray. And then kind of, you know, the ability to kind of sustain yourself in the lane, just wave clearing against this Orianna. So if Jizuki can force him back early with the help of Gilius, it can really set Kakan back a fair bit.
I really think that the majority of this pressure from Dan will come down in the mid lane. You can't really impact bot lane that much, and again, in the top lane, you could be scared of a potential turnaround, especially post 6 from this Renekton. You don't really have the same level of damage necessary for JWoww to turn things on. So I feel like this mid lane will be a focus for Dan. They want to try and shut down Jizuki. He was such an incredible force for Giants in that last game. That will be a lot of his pressure going down there. And I think the other lanes are almost ungankable for him unless he can get a massive turnaround in one of the lanes, or unless you're comboing with JWoww in this bot lane. It might be very difficult for him. Look at this,
That was sneaky Gilius. Yeah, flash rolls from Jack Troll. That's going to be a stun up. Cocoon as well. He's going to hit him. That might just be first blood. Pops the Grey Health. He might just get out alive here. Exhaust goes down onto Gilius. Darkside trading up a lot of that damage. Gets the expunge onto 3 members. Quickseth only just surviving with that Grey Health. You'd think the stun and the Cocoon would finish him off, but not today.
That was a really good escape by Quickseth there. Really good. Able to just prop that Grey Health into the shield at the very last moment. It was a great move by Gilius to move in. I think he used Repel over onto the Krugs to get behind try and circumvent some of that vision in the bot lane.
He repelled onto the blast cone behind the dragon, rotated completely around to negate any vision. Very intelligent pathing.
Has burnt the flash on only Quickset though, so it wasn't exactly a priority target, but it does mean that he becomes more vulnerable now if he's trying to save Darkseid in these situations. Mid lane is now the focus.
Uh-oh. Cocoon might be in a little bit of trouble. Cocoon is going to get flashed. Nice gravity field as well to stop the advantage of Jack Troll. That's going to be really big. Like I said, low mobility on that Victor is going to result in Jizuki maybe just taking control of this wave now. He hasn't burnt any summoners, of course.
Absolutely not. Kind of running out of mana, but is shoving in this Victor early on, as we expect. Victor does need to get that first upgrade on his Death Ray to be more effective at pushing out this Orianna, who is going to have that potential in the early game to bully the Victor, and has been the case thus far, although the CS has remained very even between the two of them. Triple Doran's coming out on JWoww here, looking to have an early trade potential versus Ruin on this Renekton, who is yet to back and buy anything. Here comes Dan, shoving in the lane with Cocoon, who doesn't have the mana to clear the wave as effectively as he would like. And again, Dan being fairly quiet thus far. Julius already able to impact 2 lanes, already able to burn 2 flashes, 2 summoners from key members of the Wind and Rain side. Dan yet to have an impact, and again, very difficult for him to impact these lanes because there is very little CC apart from Tahm Kench in the bot lane. Very, very little CC to work with, and obviously it's very difficult for a Kha'Zix to be able to gank without that CC.
I mean, now War's bottom lane are just playing a little bit more aggressive. Darkseid and Quickset not really too bothered about stepping up to the Caitlyn. Even though Quickset doesn't have his summoners and Darkseid doesn't have the heal. Not worried all too much as Dan is here as well. Cocoon now picking up that Mark 1 on the Hex Core. Gonna be able to clear waves at this current moment in time, but let's flick over to the top side. I mean, you look at the item builds coming out from JWoww. Triple Dorans, remember it hasn't been changed yet. So you still, the passive is still not unique, so you do get a lot of mana back when you do clear the minion wave out. And Ruin actually using the TP there as well. Not too much of a surprise. Going towards that Black Cleaver.
We expect that from Renekton. Black Cleaver, Titanic Hydra generally tends to be the go-to build for Renekton in the top lane right now. We'll give him pressure versus JWoww, who naturally is going to want to build armor, but also is going to need lots of magic resist to contend with the mixed damage coming out from Giants. A lot of damage from Julius in the jungle, as well as Jizuki, and then you have that AD threat coming out from Ruin in Minute. A good balance of damage and making defensive itemization a little bit more of a thought process for JWoww in this game.
Just forcing Ruin in now. JWoww's had a rather commanding 2 games now on in this top lane. Just Ruin kind of forced back. You mentioned earlier that the Renekton very, very good at early trading. Very, very good. All in, just go in, get out again very easily. Just making sure the enemy is low on resources in terms of mana.
Well, Triple Doran's really bolsters the laning phase for JWoww, but does delay his later game build that much more. Looks like Cocoon knows what's going on in this mid lane. Vision not quite there, but I think he is very wary. Here comes
don't think it matters. Cocoon actually putting down that Chaos Storm. Jizuki in a lot of trouble, but no, first blood goes over to Jizuki. Gilius did use that repel, jump straight into the Chaos Storm, but manages to get out alive. Flash Ghost burn, as well as the heal from Cocoon, resulted in his death, and that's going to be a big win for Giants.
Okay, I talked about Cocoon potentially seeing Gilius coming in from the sidelines there, but I don't think that was actually the case. We saw him go super aggressive onto Jizuki. I think he was expecting the support of Dan, maybe a little bit overeager to make that play happen. And again, Gilius has been such an impact on the map. He is the definitive Challenger Series jungler. We have talked about it. Always able to impact his lanes in the positive manner. And now Quickset has got his flash available, won't even need it, will just be forced to back off here as Darkseid uses poison to clear the wave.
Yeah, but using that poison casket for the slow as well, so yeah. Giants unable to actually force anything here, but now Jizuki going very aggressive build, picking up the Sorcerer's Shoes actually, instead of actually getting a Fiendish Codex there as well as an additional Doran's Ring.
Just looking to have as much early impact with those Sorcerer's Shoes as possible, burn through any potential base magic resist and rune-based magic resist that these players on Raw are going to be having. Again, big pressure onto Darkseid in this bot lane. He will take the ace in the hole. And a Minute and Jack Troll have again asserted their dominance in this bot lane. And again, the Giants' composition is very similar to the one they had previously. They will be looking to take early turrets, then rotate as a team, searching for tower dive potential very early on here. No one here to capitalize on this push, though, for Giants, as Twitch has backed. Unfortunately, Gilius not quite in the place and the time but they should be able to get a little bit of early damage down onto this turret, which will allow them to set up later as this game progresses. Minute and Jack Trolls have had that push potential throughout this laning phase.
I think a little bit is a little bit of an understatement.
Yeah, SK, that's 3/4 of the HP of the tower dog.
Yep, oh yes, with that BF sword. An extremely unlucky situation now for War's bot lane. Darkside coming back after taking so much damage. They actually prioritised the Berserker's Greaves here, just to be able to clear that wave out ASAP. Clearly couldn't afford the Cutlass for his Blade the Ruined King. And now you've got to kind of think to yourselves, are Giants going to do the same thing they did in game number 1, which was just set up for these tower dives time and time again, and just force War to actually fight them?
Well, Dan looks like he's anticipating that from Gilius, as he is sat in that bot lane tri-brush waiting potentially for Gilius to face check. They will clear this control ward here as Dan comes out. Here we go.
Oh, here we go. Cocoon does land. Shockwave onto 2. Quick step in the core here, but no. Kirkhand is going to come through. Is going to be able to find the execution onto Jizuki. Gilius is going to get exhausted. Does repel to the Scuttle Crab. Is going to be able to get away. They trade Dan for Jizuki. That was a very, very nice official voyage from Quickstep there as well, just to back up the rest of his team.
But it bought time for Minute to get a bit more damage onto that structure. It's actually going to force Darkside to clear that wave. Gilius gets a kill onto Quickstep there, and the tower dive could take place onto Twitch.
Yes, it could. Flash, actually. Darkside just flashing away. Fashion Gideus, though, he's going to follow this one up. Heal, actually. There comes the Rat-a-tat-tat. Gilius taking a fair bit of damage. Expunge actually following that one up quite nicely. Still ticking. Actually, Teleport does come down from JWoww, trying to look for something. A turret goes down. Flash forward. That's going to be a taunt. Mini is going to be able to get out of there. Kakan's going to get exhausted. He's going to be nice and safe. Jack Troll using that Glacial Fissure for the disengage. Darkside is going to be here in ambush. Can't really find anything too much. Is very, very low as well. Perfect disengage from the Giants bot lane here. And the teleport blown. Ruin is going to be able to put a lot of damage down to this first tier turret at the top.
This Giants bot lane has been exquisite throughout this Best of 2 series so far. The disengage was absolutely on point. And they bought time for Ruin to pressure this top lane, having picked up most of the components of his Black Cleaver. Dan trying to solo out this dragon, will get it because Gilius not in the position necessary to contest. Jack Troll was doing his best there. So that's a little bit of a reprieve for War. They will get some global objectives back for their loss. No lane swaps happening, by the way, yet. They are going to keep Caitlyn down in that bot lane, and they are going to leave Renekton to 1v1 the Galio in the top lane here. I would expect Minute to make a switch after they've shoved this lane in, potentially. I think maybe just going down there to clear the wave for the moment.
Infinity Edge is now finished as well for Minute. And the one thing I want to point out as well, like a lot of these early carries are prioritizing this Infinity Edge rather than going for the full upgraded on fully upgraded attack speed item, whether that's Static Shiv or Rapid Fire Cannon first, while picking up the BF sword in the meantime. Just rather upgrading the Infinity Edge. Just want the damage. Shockwave actually. Cocoon just misses. Kakan flashes, but the Venomous Bite is going to follow through anyway, and Gilius picks himself up another kill.
Jizuki has been on form on this Orianna. It's something that you have to consider as a ban versus him in future games. Such a comfort pick for this guy. Shockwaves have been used offensively for ganks, defensively to peel. Oh, the kill for Minute as well. They are going to put pressure onto Darkside.
Ace in the hole came through, does a lot of damage. Quicksev didn't really know what hit in there. Popped the grey health, thought he was more than safe. That 50 caliber net setting up that headshot was more than enough damage. Like I said, that Infinity Edge doing a lot of work this early on in the game.
Wind and Rain crumbling to the storm of the Giants' rotation here. Again, a nice 2 picks. Hasn't resulted in netting them a turret, but it will result in some pressure in that mid lane. Now swaps can start to take place. Ruin still has that teleport available. He can move to that bot lane. Rift Herald could be a consideration for the Giants roster, as they have got such good pressure in the bot side of the map that they can essentially now commit their resources to the top side. Vision has been set up for it as well. It looks like we are going to see mid lane become the focus. Although actually it looks like Caitlyn and Braum are just heading back down towards that bot lane to continue to push. But this does mean that they won't get much done on the map. That's the only issue that I'm facing here for Giants. Already achieved your primary objective in the bot lane, which is taking that turret. They are just essentially going back there to achieve very little and leaving Ruin in this top lane, who hasn't really been getting much done versus the wave clear of JWoww.
Yeah, it really hasn't. JWoww looking maybe to make a heroic entrance near the mid lane now, just rotating downward. He's actually going to find Ruin out on that top side, but other than that, he's not going to find too much. Kraken there with the wave clear, and that's the thing, that's the most important thing to kind of pick up on. It's the fact that he still has that, and they still have that utility to use against an Orianna and a Caitlyn combo.
You're not going to have the same level of domination, I think, from the Giants team this time around, because they don't have that ability to just punish very little wave clear on the side of War. War will always have that potential to just basically destroy waves as the Giants roster looks to come on and push these turrets. The only thing I can think that keeping Minute in the spot lane is achieving is they are putting pressure onto Darkseid consistently. They are not letting him have the time to farm, and that might be more important than Giants than making these rotations.
Seth. Cocoon does land in mid-air. There comes the Q as well for the Braum. Does manage to flash over the wall. Meanwhile, though, Harriet does get taken, and that will be actually a Rift Herald over to the side of War. Using that time very, very wisely.
They are. And that's something that actually benefits Dan right now. He has had very little impact on the map apart from securing these neutral objectives like Dragon and Rift Herald. It's what they can do with it, though. I do worry for Giants in the sense that they haven't really done much since those bot lane plays and taking that bot lane tier 1. There has been very little achieved for them on the map apart from just getting some kills here and there. Which is why I would have liked to have seen some earlier rotations, swapping the lanes about, trying to sort of break out of this laning phase that they seem to have committed themselves to. Because Gilius is looking to just completely shut down in terms of ganks and impact this Twitch or impact this bot lane. And it's just left Dan free reign across the map right now.
Darkseid's been spotted out. Didn't actually spot them on the wards. There comes the Glacial Fisher. He's trying to go into ambush, but he's going to get ambushed instead. It's going to be another kill over towards the Caitlyn. We need to sitting on 2 kills. Infinity Edge is going to rip through that tier 2 turret in the bottom lane. And War just looking kind of routed right now.
I think he saw them with the ward as well, but he stood there and just tried to clear the wave. Darkseid picked off by the Giants team there, and eventually all of that pressure that Giants have been looking to exert on that bot lane pays dividends, and now finally we might start to see the team rotate to another area of the map. They've already managed to push this mid lane in. They're going to get a mid lane tier 1 at the back of it as well, and certainly Giants have opened up the map to start to snowball this in their favor. We'll have to worry about Rift Herald in an area that it could be used. They are limited on time, and there doesn't seem to be a sort of a right area to use it in, but they could just shove it in the bot lane and let it do its thing, and then just sort of move to another lane to sort of defend against the onslaught of the Giants roster.
I mean, it does chew up the minion waves as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, just having that as an extra person on the field, your 6th man, as it were, might be quite helpful to them. JWoww now, not struggling so much against Ruin, does have a lot of trade potential with the Iceborne Gauntlet, but you got to say, with JWoww not making a heroic entrance in these small skirmishes, as you know, Giants have played this game once again. The macro has just been on point, just pressuring out, finding these pickoffs where they can. And Darkseid, a little bit of disrespect coming out from him, I think, especially towards that bottom side. 3 turrets now to Giants, and it's looking all too familiar of game number 1.
Giants seem to have the idea that focusing the Twitch and limiting the Twitch's gold gain is the most important part, which is why we saw them, you know, put so much pressure on putting Darkseid behind. Giants is going to walk in, and it's going to be Renekton popping the Dominus just to clear waves. Rift Herald comes through, this should be a turret in return for War. Rift Herald will get some value here. As Ruin just trying to clear, just sad Ruin trying to clear waves with that Dominus.
Oh, Sue is getting Ruin though. JWoww, he's found himself in amongst 3 members of Giants. They're going to find him another kill. Gilius finds 3, 1 and 4 now on this Elise. Doing an absolutely fantastic job of just setting up these lanes, setting up the waves, and setting up the game for victory. War will claim the bonus prize, though, of that Ocean Drake. As Giants are still going to push forward. I mean, look at the damage, look at the turrets, look at the pressure they're creating. This
is child's play for Gilius. He literally walks into a lane, lands a cocoon, finds a kill, gets an objective. This is exactly what you want to achieve as a jungler. And War just look routed. They look like they're trying to achieve different things across the map. They are still trying to cling to an ability to siege themselves, but basically sacrificing other areas of the map. They are trying to trade neutral objectives for turrets at this point in time. That's kind of what they've seen from the majority of the moves from Dan. He's saying, we'll happily trade a turret, but we'll pick up a dragon. We'll happily trade a turret, but we'll pick up the Rift Herald. Did that again just there. They traded the top lane life of JWoww and his turret for another dragon. I believe we've had a mountain and an ocean drake so far. I would have to double check. But it doesn't seem super worth it right now because the gold is slowly creeping to a massive advantage for Giants.
There's only one time it's worth trading an objective for a dragon. That's when you've got a Mordekaiser on your team, which can control the Drake when it dies, but we don't have one of those, unfortunately.
Or maybe an Infernal.
Maybe an Infernal or a Mountain, definitely so, but judging on War's lanes right now, even one of those Drakes would be rather catastrophic to what they want to achieve at this current moment in time. Look at the gold lead as well, just ever so slowly stretching in Giants' favour. We're sitting on about 7,000 now for them.
And I think a really important point to remember is you have a late game scaling composition with Darkseid and Kakan. You want to get as much gold as physically possible. You want to be focusing your own ability to take turrets here. Neutral objectives are great, but Dragon no longer nets you gold. Rift Herald will help you get a turret, but it is only a way of facilitating a turret, not actually being proactive in your own right in taking turrets. Look at the items for Victor. He's working towards a Lich Bane, but he's only sitting on, I think it's a Mark II Hex Core there.
That's perfect Hex Core.
Oh, perfect Hex Core. So that's actually been fully upgraded. But still, you know, he's still fairly behind when it compares to Orianna, who's hit some big spikes here with the Haunting Guys and that Morellonomicon, and the Sorcerer Shoes on top of that. Darkseid's got 3 daggers on top of a Blade of the Ruin King. You want gold as this composition because you want to get to the late game. Giants are rotating around the map, slowly strangling objectives away from War and preventing them from ever finding a way back into this game.
Ace in the hole, just half of Darkseid's health. Oh my goodness! I didn't see the grey health pop. I don't think Quicksilver even actually used it. It just ends up going down underneath the turret. One thing you want to do against the Caitlyn, or never do against the Caitlyn, is position yourself between the turret and the wall, because there's a trap and you die.
You also never want to disrespect the traps as well. The damage is insane from Caitlyn if you can land that, especially combo that with the Braum, who's going to get the proc from the Winter's Bite. Huge damage output there.
Now Gilius rotating once again, and just Dan just trying to do a little something here, but just cannot find anything. Now Jizuki just trying to clear this wave. Actually, Taunt does land. Here comes Darkseid. There goes the shockwave. Just misses, but it's not going to matter. Braum's there with a shield. Darkseid actually have to use the heal there. Did use the rat-a-tat-tat, or the spray and pray, to be able to get away.
Don't know if you noticed, his first basic attack actually hit a minion. And then he switched over to the Orianna. And
oh, whoops, wrong time.
I mean, by that point, the fight was already over, right? He was never actually going to get value out of that spray and pray, but still quite funny to see at the end of the day. And again, another turret goes down for Giants as they shove yet another wave in. Remember, you have to commit the Victor to your wave glare. He is your only former wave glare. There's obviously JWoww can do it as well, but he's currently stuck in a side lane battle against Ruin, who is just relentlessly shoving the waves in now that he's picked up this Tiamat.
I mean, with that Sheen as well, you're going to want to try and force these turrets. Sheen does a lot of damage, especially when it upgrades it into the Lich Bane in order to kind of take these turrets down ASAP. He could have gone an easily large rod here for just more bang for your buck. To get the full use out of the Sheen / Lich Bane, if he does choose to actually complete it, you're going to have to be quite close to Jizuki or close to the Caitlyn. That's not exactly where you want to be at all. And it does look like now Giants are going to go, oh, well, we'll just do Baron. Not a problem for us, because you can't step near us because we've got a Caitlyn, Orianna, and a Renekton as well with teleport available.
They know that it's going on right now, but it's a very low HP here. Oh, the Shockwave doesn't get the steal.
Shockwave actually on the Giant side, so actually it didn't matter whatsoever. He just used it for the damage. For the damage. Well, there comes the Abyssal Void. Quicksilver actually on his own just ends up getting taken out by Jizuki. Hang on a second though, because Kakan's in a lot of trouble. Ruin's just going to run him down. Chaos Storm's not going to do all too much damage. Oh, Ruin flashes forward, gets the last proc with the Dominus, finds the kill, and now Dan on the run. Gilius does miss the cocoon, but I'm not sure it's going to matter at all. They can pretty much just leave him alone. Not sure they're going to want to though. Repel into Venomous Spike would finish the kill. Gilius really wants it. He's going to chase for it. Dan leaps over the wall, and Gilius will just decide to back off.
Jizuki using the Shockwave for the last bit of burst damage. It's actually a huge amount of burst damage is Shockwave. So using it on a neutral objective like that can help you secure it with Smite. Excellent play because they had that vision control of the blue side entrance and the river. And actually, again, War not in a position where they feel like they can contest in team fights. So again, Giants contesting and going for a big global objective like Baron that warrants a response from War. And even when War choose to respond, they're not in a position in a team fight scenario where they can actually contend with the pressure from, or the damage coming out from Jizuki and Minute, which is really high right now.
Absolutely massive. I mean, just bursting out ASAP, just making sure no one of War could actually get on that Baron, did obviously net them it, and with the Shockwave on, a pretty low cooldown, around 60 seconds probably at this current moment in the game. I mean, you blow it, it's fine. Next team fight you're going to have up anyway. Yeah,
this looks like Giants are just reeling in for another win in this series against arguably a weakened War roster. They have got 3 out of 5. Kakan has not had the performances he would have liked. He was the substitute for War in the Challenger Series qualification tournament, by the way. as War were obliged to play with 3 of the 5 of their roster that qualified in the first place for the Challenger Series. There is the Shockwave.
Shockwave. Didn't really hit anybody, but it's not going to matter. Hang on, Heroic Entrance, though. Isn't really going to hit anybody. Only hits the minions. Chaos Storm's going to chase them out, but it's not going to matter. Ruin's in the front line. Just get the knock up. There comes the Gravity Well. He's going to get eaten. He gets picked off eventually by Kakan. Finishes him off with the Lich Bane. Ace in the hole. Only hits Quickset there. They lose a member, but they're going to carry on pushing. Jizuki flashing forward, trying to finish off the kill on Kakan. It's not going to matter because Caitlyn's going to be there to finish it off. Many just doing so much damage at this current moment. 2 attack speed items, Infinity Edge, and there goes the base of War.
Even 4 versus 5, Giants find their way to some sort of net global advantage win. War desperately trying to find the engage on the turret. The wave clear was there. They have the team fight potential with the Victor, but the damage just not at the level it needs to be. Giants able to just output way more. Caitlyn is leaps and bounds ahead of her counterpart on this Twitch. It's going to be another inhibitor turret as JWoww tries to find his way into a team fight, but again is denied. Giants 4 versus 5 take yet another turret here.
That Baron buff still got a little bit of time left on it as well, so they're going to be able to push down this bottom side, or they can just go back up to the top side. They've got a lot of siege potential, and Dan, once again, on this Kha'Zix, hasn't really been able to make anything stick at all. He's picked up the Phage, he hasn't even gone tanky whatsoever, and then you've got, look at Gilius. He's on his way to a locket. He's got, can't remember the item's name, and he's got the fully completed jungler item.
It's Eye of the Equinox? Oh no, you're looking at Dead Man's Plate.
Dead Man's Plate. He's got Dead Man's Plate as well to kind of follow up on anybody that is trying to escape with the mobility boots as well. There's nothing really stopping him, and Dan just so far behind on this Kha'Zix is obviously getting out CS as well. He's got a big question mark on top of that pick, in all honesty.
I have to point fingers at the Kha'Zix. You know, like we talked about it in Champions League. What does Kha'Zix do for this team composition? Kha'Zix has one function. He is a brawler, half assassin as well, if you can build in that way, if you can get snowballed. He snowballs from the laning phase and just dominates the game from that point forward. When you're playing Kha'Zix from behind, it feels awful because you get destroyed in team fights, you don't have the damage necessary to actually kill anybody. It's a very tough position for Dan to be in at this point in time. I think Dan would be better pressed taking a sort of utility-based jungler that can have an impact no matter what. Something like we talked about in the last game was Gragas. That could have been far more impactful for their team. And in this situation, even the same thing. Gragas would have potentially had more influence than Dan is able to be having on this Kha'Zix right now.
Kakan has hit a small power spike of that Lich Bane, but like I mentioned earlier, might have been better off to go for something like a Rylai's in order for that extra sustained damage and the slow. Doesn't want to jump in though. Hang on a second. Dan gets locked up with the Cocoon. There comes the Heroic Entrance, but the entirety of the GIA squad just back out without too much of an issue. Shockwave does only land onto JWoww. Now Redemption's going to come up and heal them quite nicely. And they're just going to carry on. They don't really mind whatsoever. That's a load of big cooldowns down for War. And Giants are just looking to end this game right here, right now.
Once the Hero's Entrance has gone down, there's nothing that War can do to force a fight, so therefore Giants are very happy to then step back up to the plate and say, okay, we are ready to just siege again. You've used everything that you had to try and prevent this siege in the first place. You failed, you didn't hit anybody, you didn't get any kills, and we are happy to just step up to the plate. Once that Hero's Entrance is gone, you have nothing to punish us with.
There's another turret down. War's base completely broken at this time. One inhibitor stands between them and complete base domination. Giants still pushing forward. They're going to be able to take it out without too much of a problem. Chaos Storm in the sidelines, though Ruin trying to actually just distract at this current point. But Kraken just doesn't have any damage whatsoever to find a kill. And Ruin just escapes scot-free. This guy's gone full damage as well. Blade of the Ruin King, Black Cleaver, and he's still sitting on that Tiamat as well.
I mean, what damage are you worried about right now? You are so far ahead that even Darkseid is not a threat to you. Victor really the biggest threat in terms of damage potential on the side of War, but even he is still behind where he should be at this point in the game. And he wants to be a threat. You know, he can jump in with Dominus that provides an element of tanky stats for him in the form of the health. He wants to jump in and force Kakan out of the fight. What you're going to do as Ruin is you're going to run in, you're going to basically force yourself at Darkseid or Kakan. They have to deal with you before they can then turn to deal with the team. And by that point, the Giants roster has already cleaned up the front line, which is still very easy for them to deal with how far this Caitlyn is ahead, with that last Whisper as well, just puncturing JWoww's armor at this point in time. So all Ruin's job is very similar to the way that we saw Kennen played in our first series of the day. all Ruin has to do is run at one of the threats and say, you deal with me now, and then you deal with the team, by which point Giants have already cleaned up the rest of the War roster.
Now Giants just chasing the rest of War away. That Baron is up in a couple of seconds' time. And it's only a matter of time before they start that one up. I tell you what, Dead Man's Fate does look funny on an Elise when she uses that range attack to actually proc it. GIA's coming in though. Cocoon does end up going a little bit wide. There comes the Gravity Well, but JWoww now in the middle of 3 members does get the flash. He gets the taunt onto the Caitlyn. Shockwave is going to get dodged here. This could be War's time. There comes the spray and pray through 4 members. Caitlyn's still fighting back. Redemption's going to heal them off. JWoww Ruin's in the middle of everything at all, and he's just going to get knocked up time and time again, but it's not going to matter. That Dominus providing those tanky stats that you mentioned, and now War on the run. Kakan's going to go down. There's another. Double kill comes through for the Caitlyn, and that'll be it. Giants are going to take this one 2-0.
Giants roster has come out swinging from their LCS demotion, finding their feet in this Challenger Series again, and Minute, Julius, Ruin, Jizuki and Jack Troll have been fantastic in this series versus War. Arguably a weak version of War. They had to play with 3 of the original members, but let's not take away anything from Giants. They have played a blinder in this best of 2. Have looked dominant from the get-go, and Julius back to his top jungling form that we expected from him in this Challenger Series.
The Nexus falls, and that will mark a fantastic start for Giants, taking 2-0 against Wind and Rain. And kind of thoughts go to kind of next week on the